Good evening, everyone, and welcome back again to Alpha to Omega Conversations for a New Earth. First time you've seen three of us tonight. We, Alyssa and Matt, are super excited to be joined by Cassandra Darner, our good friend, also here in Arizona. No, not in Arizona tonight. But how are you both feeling tonight? How are you doing, Alyssa?
I'm doing great. I'm super excited. I usually am, but voice is a big one. Lots of trauma for me in my voice, and this last week has been just like opening so much just because I've been preparing. That's usually how it is. How are you doing, Sandra?
I would have to agree with that. I'm very happy and grateful to be here.
Yeah, we're so honored to have you here, Cassandra. I'll put a quick link to her, a little bit more info about her up on the screen. Has been working as a mental health counselor for several years and is in the quantum healing world, just like Alyssa here at Omega Heart. So very excited to receive your guidance, your heartfelt intuition, and all those aspects of reclaiming the power of our voice that will come into the conversation tonight. So yes, tonight is conversation 10, which, as Alyssa mentioned, this one we have moved up through the chakras the last 5 conversations or so, and we are now on the throat, the voice, the sound of sovereignty is what we named the show. And that's kind of a call to the sound of silence, that really prophetic song that we know so well. We feel like that's run its course. It's time for a new sound. It's time to put the phones down, to put the dopamine hits from all those different places in the place that they belong, and allow the vulnerability and the sound of the heart to really ring out. And that, we believe, is key to bring in the new earth. So before we proceed, we've got a few guests who've already said they're here. We've got to give a quick shout out. Eve, so glad to have you with us as always. Thank you so much for being here. We know that evenings get busy, and we always love speaking with us, taking some time out of your day. Arrow, hi from the beach, sunny San Diego, in the house.
There, tell us.
Yeah, we'd love to hear a little bit about it. The sounds.
Ooh, nice. Bring some of that sunshine and cool weather back with you. And we got enough sunshine. Just bring the good weather.
Don't need any more of that. And Brian, good friend from Atlanta in the house. So good to see you, Brian. Thanks so much for making the time. We really mean it, you guys. We know life is so busy. The lengths we go to create this little space on Tuesday night is, let's just say, it's worth it. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us. You guys know the format tonight is even more exciting because you get to hear not only Alyssa's perspective, but also Cassandra. And we're so thrilled to see what comes out. We come not really with a plan, but just a list of questions and a whole lot of heart. So we're always excited to see what unfolds. So thanks again for joining, and we'll jump right in. So tonight's conversation being about the throat and the voice. I think we've heard it before, Alyssa, that America and like part of our purpose in the process of humanity and this progress toward a new earth really is to bring the voice back to humanity. Isn't that something that we've heard before?
Yeah, that was really interesting learning about that. Like a lot of people do believe that the earth has its own chakras, and it actually has kind of like, just like we have the Kundalini, it does too. And there's different parts of the world that supposedly is like center point for those different chakras. And the United States is the voice of the earth, which is a very big thing. When I realized that, like, wow, like we here are meant to be the voice of unity for the whole earth. We're meant to be the kind of the first ones. And it reminds me of the who was it that said like the Western woman will.
That was the Dalai Lama, right?
What did he say exactly?
Something like the Western woman will save the world.
And it's just like we're the ones that are going to first speak the truth about what we're meant to do, what we're meant to step into as humanity, and that what we all really feel about this disconnection and this power struggle and all the things that we're like going through as humans, that we're meant to balance out and become harmonized and one with each other again. And I do believe that here we have a lot of freedoms and a lot less control of expression, that we're meant to be the first ones to step into that. So that's really, really cool that you brought that up.
Yeah, it is. It again wasn't really planning on it, but that came through. This is a country that it's got a rare commodity, which is freedom to express yourself really however you see fit. And Cassandra, specifically in the mental health profession that you've transitioned to, it's really sort of all about expressing and talking and sharing. Did you ever see yourself or expect yourself to end up choosing that as a profession?
No, it was a career change for me. I worked with plants before in nurseries, and so and my first degree was in biology. So not exactly.
Yeah.
But I always had a lot of curiosity about the psyche and the why we do what we do, why we feel what we feel. Very curious in that way. So it's not exactly a surprising turn of events, I would say, probably.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. And I think there's so many, it seems like from the parallel that jumps out immediately is growth. You were surrounded with growing things that sort of grew naturally just with light, heat, and water. And now you're in a place that we use different tools to grow, but it seems like it's all geared toward growth. I don't even know if that's a good summary, but is that part
That
of
was beautiful. I love it.
that's what just from the interactions I've had, it feels like that's like what your soul calling seems like very surrounded with is this idea of growth and progress and kind of like a sun rising, just becoming more bright. So we're very much in that same place. So I think for the conversation itself, we got a clarification. So let's make sure we speak the truth here the best we can. So Arrow has clarified for us. Do you want to go ahead and read that, Alyssa?
Yeah, the world will be saved by the Western woman. I love that.
Let's do it. So thank you.
America. We're coming to America.
You're also very impressive to be finding that while on the beach, while watching a live stream. I'm like blown away.
Talent.
Yes, incredible. So we felt moved tonight. Super serendipitous turn of events. There is an ancient story about a princess named Cassandra that has a lot to do with the voice. So what better time to share that story than now? A lot of you have heard the story of the Iliad. A lot of you have seen Brad Pitt's version of Troy and heard about the Trojan horse. But we uncovered an aspect of that story that I actually didn't even know, and I used to be like obsessed with Greek mythology. So I'm going to read a quick summary of this story, and it's going to lead and sort of be like a tether for our conversation for the evening. I'll read it just a few minutes, and then we're going to break it down with Alyssa and Cassandra's help to do so. So does that sound good? Either of you have anything that wants to come out before we do? Good to go. Great. So, in summary, Cassandra was a princess of Troy and a devoted priestess, known not just for her beauty, but for her purity and spiritual depth. The god Apollo noticed her and gifted her with the divine power of prophecy. She accepted the gift in reverence, but when she refused Apollo's desire for her body, he retaliated, not by taking back the gift, but by cursing it. From that moment on, no one would believe her prophecies, no matter how true. He painted her as mad, dangerous, and untrustworthy, and the world believed that story. Cassandra warned her people of all the disasters to come, the fall of Troy, the Trojan horse, and more, but no one listened. She went from pleading to weeping to silence. Her visions never stopped, but her voice slowly faded. Eventually, she was captured and taken as a spoil of war. Even then, she foresaw her own death and tried to speak the truth, but again she was ignored, and so she died unheard. Yet now her soul endures, carrying not only the weight of what she saw, but the grief of being disbelieved and silenced. She lingers now in that silence, waiting not to haunt, but to be remembered, and for her voice to be reclaimed. And maybe, just maybe, that remembering begins right here, right now. I'm just going to go ahead and say it does.
Yes, hell yes.
Yeah. So lots that jumps out in that. But I think for me, at least, the first question I would have for Alyssa and then Cassandra as well, how important is it to know, I don't want to say who we're getting into bed with, but to maybe like do a background check, because I believe Apollo was the god of war. So it's kind of like, what do you expect if you get some intel on somebody? What do you expect by going to their place? So I don't know. What do you, should we move to another aspect?
I didn't catch that part, but I love that you did. But yes, like eventually, by our experiences, we start to learn, wait, why are you giving this to me? Like, depending on what we've gone through, we become a little, I don't even want to say callous, but just like conscientious of when someone's giving a gift to see beyond, because a lot of times a lot of gifts are given with expectations, and it's a very hard thing to begin to balance, because I myself, I had grew up with this, like, I did this for you, and I didn't know that I had some kind of like leverage that it was going to be used over me, and I learned by these experiences that I can't trust, and I stopped asking, and I stopped like being okay with people offering me things. And then I started to realize, okay, like I'm actually harming myself because I'm not seeing anything other than this potential there. And so I started having to say to myself, like, I deserve good things to be given. I deserve people to give me things out of love. I do need to be aware that if whether it is or not. So it just became like my capacity to ask a lot of questions and say, do you have any intentions of this? Are you sure you aren't expecting anything? I definitely this or this. And then you can like assess the situation. They still might lie because they're have their own thing, but you start to feel differently. You start to see and sense it. You don't have to reject. There's so many good things that are given out of love, and people can become hardened because this has happened that you aren't able now to receive. But it's a very important capacity because we deserve it and it feels really good. And we need to learn how to be able to do that same thing. And if we think that the only thing that is given is like that, we're likely not even going to be giving out of love either, because we have such an empty tank because we've got to do it all ourselves. So it's like a circle that is broken but needs to be put back together of receive love, give love, and know the difference of the discernment between the two.
Yeah, I think you added some great color on that. And I think that adds to the question that we can ask. It's almost like, how can you learn to trust a promise? So she was given a promise for a gift. What is your take on that, Cassandra? Going back to this story of the woman that you share a name with. She was given a promise for this amazing gift, but really it was a veiled trap that led her to destruction. So how can we take in those promises and words that we hear? How can we filter them with our heart, like Alyssa's saying?
Yeah, because that is like a precarious balance, right? Like protecting but being open,
Right.
being soft and firm. And I mean, when it comes to people, like what I would consider the gold standard would be is like to trust until you're given a reason not to trust, and to stay close to your intuition, because there is an aspect of just human behavior that can be manipulated. We do encounter these people, we do encounter these situations. And so, trusting until we see something right before our eyes, that might not be realistic in a lot of spaces. So it's just the idea of like staying close to your intuition, grounding yourself in softness, but also finding that balance of protection as you get to know, as you receive more information. That's vague, but maybe if you wanted me to clarify a part of it. But it's a big question you're asking.
Yeah, no, I think we can ask a lot of follow-up questions. Did you have something, Alyssa, that you wanted to jump in?
Yeah, like one of the things is I've like tried to understand that a lot because of what I've been through. Like trust is so tough for me because I trusted. One of the pitfalls of trust before until they give you reason not to is that I wanted to trust, like because I wanted to feel loved and close, and I wanted it to be the best possible situation. So I placed myself in these situations that just because he hadn't shown me yet, I would go all in. I'm just trusting you. And I do think that there's some amount of discernment I've realized that I need to hold as my staple, not just like, I'll just trust you until you tell me otherwise. I won't trust you until you do, but I'm not going to judge you or say you're either. I'm open to see what it's going to be. And I hope that it's this, but I know that it could be this. And that places you exactly in the middle until the evidence proves itself, and trust is grown naturally because the evidence piles up so much that why would you not be able to equate that to something versus for me, and this doesn't apply to everybody, but for me, I found myself wanting to trust. So, and even like I would turn even a blind eye at some things because I didn't want to believe that that's true. Because I wanted to believe that and I wanted to trust, and I don't like not trusting. That was so uncomfortable. So you just got to be careful. I had to be careful with trusting until you gave me reason not to. And my power too, when I was pulling back my power with all these experiences of these terrible things that happened, I realized that was one of the wisdoms that I gained, was that I chose to trust. Why did I do that? I shouldn't have trusted because he didn't give me any reason to trust him yet. Until you have the evidence, that's what proves it. Not because you just should get trust. Why should we trust something that we don't know if it's a snake or this? We should just be open to see what it is. Hold space like in your power. And that's what I didn't do. I was like, I trust you. I'm going to trust you. And then I put myself in that position, and then I blamed them when I should have said, your accountability is to yourself, and you are the one that chose to trust before you saw if it was really a safe place. I would jump too quickly because I wanted to trust, made decisions based on trust when that hadn't been earned. So I do think that there's reason to always believe that people are and could be trustworthy, and not paint them or discredit them, or not be open to that possibility because you're so hurt. But at the same time, be aware that until you see further evidence, you got to know that they're capable of anything. You're just in the discovery phase that is fun, instead of putting all your eggs in one basket. Because I really want to trust you. Now take me off to Neverland because I want to escape this place. Now it's your fault. Like,
yeah.
You trust.
Yeah. That's a beautiful way to say it. And both of you called out to two things that I noticed. One was intuition and trusting yourself first. And another one was discernment, which is like being able to know what's best for you, regardless of how convincing somebody else can be. Those are not easy things to develop. Those are gifts that take time and a lot of care and attention. That was probably like maybe more coming back to your work with plants. Like these are tender little plants in a lot of us. So I think I'd like to come back to Cassandra first, but in the story, it says she accepted the gift with reverence. So it's like she just felt like she had to silently say, okay, but there was some part of her that probably had some questions, that wanted to like know the terms and conditions. And we mentioned like this is kind of like the Ariel story. You see that like golden quill come out of the sea and write all these terms and conditions, and it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't hear any of that. I just heard the part about being able to walk on earth. So what is that voice in us? Like maybe in this example, what is it in that intuitive part of us that really wants to look out for us and understand what we're doing that we may just kind of silence more often than not? What, maybe even just in the story, what would she wanted to know before saying, okay,
I'm guessing she felt like that. Is this too good to be true? But like, oh, thank you, because that sounds great. You kind of silence that. Is this too good to be true? When that's supposed to be wisdom, being like, okay, why don't we take a breath and let's ask some questions. That looks great, but I'm not going to jump too soon. But because it looks so good and we want to believe it's like something we can have, we silence the part that feels like it's too good to be true. If it is just exactly as it is, then that time shouldn't change it anyways. So why do we jump to just receive instead of sit and ask a few questions just to settle in what is real and what we're about to sign up for?
Yeah, no, that sounds beautiful. That time to let the intuition rise. Does that ring true for you too, Cassandra? Does it just take time to like sit with your decisions and check in with yourself, or what does that look like for you?
Oh yeah. So yeah, I mean the why, Alyssa, like why do we jump? And it's because we want to skip all the hard stuff. Right? Like it's a very simple answer. Like life with like when taking it back to the story of Cassandra Ariel walking on earth, like I want life with that. Like I want life with this intuition, this ability. And so, and when we talk about relationships, Alyssa, like you were talking about, it's just like, I want happily ever after, like whatever that looks like. I just want to be happy. And I believe innately that we can be happy, like humans can be happy together, that this like urge to connection is for a valid reason. And so, I mean, that's the why. And then Matt, kind of what you're saying, like, what does it look like to develop that intuition? Because I did want to ask you, Alyssa, kind of like mirroring my similar experiences. I'm curious, and I will answer the question, Matt, but like, I'm curious, like, when it comes to like, I want to trust. I want this happy. We both want the same thing. We can get it. Like, it's not like we want to go to that simple, like, how do you feel like trusting yourself factored in those moments when, you know, we're jumping on Aladdin's like magical rug?
Right. That is such a good question. And it was because I didn't feel safe inside. And I was hoping, I was hoping that I would be able to finally feel safe. So I wanted to trust, I wanted to believe. But if I had felt safe inside and I had trusted myself, I wouldn't have felt so desperate to trust. I would have been like, wow, this is a nice offering, but I can get it myself, and I do deserve it the right way. So I'm not just going to jump on the ship right now. I'm going to take a breath and see if it's really something that resonates with me. But when we feel just starving, we don't want to look at the fine print because we just want something good because we feel so desperate to get out of that. And we're looking for somebody else to save us versus do the hard work to allow ourselves to feel that within ourselves. That was a great point.
I feel that's very relatable, and I don't think it's just you and me that experience that. But yeah, how do we develop, because there is just this feeling unsafe inside alone, and developing that self-trust is that's just the solution. And that's not in the same way that someone can't build their trust with you in one day. It can't be done by yourself in one day either, but it is a solitary activity. Exercise maybe is a better word. But yeah, I mean, intuition, it's connecting like sensations to emotions to memories or thoughts or beliefs, and making sense of it. And that's how I developed my intuition to the point where I was able to step out, and because my silence made me very sick for a few years of my life. And that's the effect, and a lot of women experience that. A lot of people experience it, but it is very much a female kind of event. But I had to, because I was so in denial about like, no, we can do this. Like, this shouldn't be hard. Like, happy shouldn't be hard. Like, I'm not asking for perfect. I just want happy.
Right.
And we both are saying we want the same thing. So why is it so? But I had to peel myself away from my expectation that it would be that we could just do it and that we could do it together. And I had to realize that we really had to do it for ourselves first. And I mean, I got better. But it took time, and it took those connections and learning to trust that like these warnings in our body or in our emotion or in our sense of feeling, they are just as important as information as like our cognition, what we believe.
Right. And most of the time we don't give it that much time and our attention because we think that our body is just kind of like is meant to serve us, or our body is just failing us in some way. It's not smart. It's just doing. And like the whole natural man, like we've been kind of led to believe from different ways that our body can't be trusted, and that we got to like overcome our body in order to be good enough. And that kind of disconnects you a little bit from like your own intuition and the parts of you that are trying to talk to you and that does have wisdom. So I think
I'm so sorry.
Go.
I was just thinking like that Western women that we were talking about before, like absolute, like we are maybe the worst at that. Like this idea that like we can think our way out of it, because there's so many situations that like have been thought out and through. But we've lost connection to some of the finer touches when it comes to the feeling and experiencing.
Right.
So true. There's so much to bring back online, and I've got lots of follow-up questions. And before we do, we've got a special friend who has joined.
Angie.
Never a problem to be late. Great to have you. We know you've got a lot going on. Thank you so much for joining. I believe you're out in doing several things as well. So thank you again so much. Those of you who've joined on Instagram and on Facebook as well, thank you so much for joining. Tonight is our throat chakra voice reclamation, as my voice cracks, you can see it, episode. And we, Alyssa and I, are joined by our good friend and guest host, Cassandra Dorner. So if you have any questions, we're talking about voice, how to find your voice, not only within your relationships, but first really within yourself. So jumping right back into what Cassandra was saying, Alyssa, have you also ever felt, I want to come back to that part of feeling sick from being silenced. Have you felt silenced in the past in your life?
Oh man. Yeah, my whole life is this story of being silenced, gaslit, and basically saying like your experience isn't, first of all, it's not important, it's not valid, and it's not worthy. And believing that is like, okay, so let me try to find the spaces where I can be worthy. Let me see if I can prove and find where I could fit in, when I was meant to be exactly as I am. And my voice was meant to be natural and very, very, what's the word? Just my own. And versus like trying to use your voice in order to please anybody else or to make it valid. And that's where I lost my voice in trying and being so worried. And I'm also empathetic. So I feel the reactions of everything I'm saying. So I became very aware of how my voice hit other people. And so it was like, oh, can't say that. How do I navigate everything that everybody's feeling? And the more that people that were there, is like, I got really good at being calculating in how I express and all these things, which comes with its own benefits, but I lost the core because the vulnerable stuff comes out messy. It just comes out real. You might not even know what you're saying until you do. And that's the part that I've learned to turn back on and realize it's not going to hit everybody the way that I hope it would, but that's okay. And it doesn't mean anything about my voice. My voice is still just as good as it was, whether or not you liked it or not. And that's like the disconnect or the belief that limited me from really finding it and expressing it. And it came to the point where with me that I had to wait till somebody validated it in order to speak. And so recently it's been like, I gotta talk to myself. And I also thought I was crazy if you talk to yourself. So I was like, I'm not allowed to talk to myself. I gotta wait for someone to show up to believe and validate everything I'm saying. And I gotta make sure I say it the right way and so it lands a certain way. And that just created so much chaos in my internal self. Mm-hmm. So learning how to step into actually hearing myself and validating myself. And if it's not received, not making it mean something about me, and validating myself and moving on and not waiting for you to figure it out and not having to convince you either. Because that was another thing that I felt like I had to do. Got to figure it out. And eventually you'll figure it out if I find the right words. So letting that go and finally feeling like, you don't need to do that. You can just love yourself enough to validate yourself. Don't silence yourself, but don't wait for anybody to believe it either. Say it and let it go. Say it, let it go.
Yeah.
Attachment to the reaction, unless it's something you want to like play around with, but don't silence your voice. So
right, yeah, you went from like the yo-yo thing to just a megaphone, seashell blasting it out over the sea. I love that. Was there a turning point for you?
It was not there was so many turning points. So I wouldn't say there was one thing that changed it. It was a lot of breaking down. It was a lot of like hard struggle of like, I can't do this anymore. I cannot keep arguing with you and trying to make this right. And I can't keep hitting the same walls, especially with people that I was with the gaslighting. Like it was crazy me, where it was like, you just said the opposite. What do you mean? And just all the games in order to make you sound crazy and invalidate everything you're saying. Well, you're trying to keep going because you want connection and you feel like there's got to be a way that we can find a reality that matches.
Right.
And going on and on and on until you're just like, why am I engaging in this? You don't want to hear me. So you're going to create the reality that doesn't hear me. So I'm done. And just drop the mic and go your own way. And the interesting thing is, people show up on their own time and validate it if they appreciate you enough to do so. And if they don't, you don't deserve that attention in your life anyway. So
Yeah.
You create new relationships and you pave new paths that bring you more resonance because you're resonating with yourself finally, and that's what you're pulling in.
Yeah, that's
I
beautiful.
drop off the people and the argument and the waiting for them to validate me and start validating myself and just be done with it.
Yeah, so much of your own problems you were creating, and just developing the awareness of that over time. I've known people that don't do that, and they end up stuck with it forever, and it really just never changes, and that can be pretty maddening. But for you, Cassandra, was it like that, like a mental discord type of sickness, or what did you mean when you said the silence started making you sick?
Yeah. So was it like that for me? Yes and no. And I'll clarify. But for the kind of illness I experiencing, I mean, it was just stereotypical, like I went to a lot of specialists. They all said that they could have it fixed in 6 months, or you'll be out of here by Christmas, whatever it was. And, come, so many months or a year later, they'd be like, yeah, you're just depressed. And I was just like, okay, well, for sure, I can see what you're saying. But I feel like there's more to it.
I love it.
And you'll be better.
Yeah, it's kind of a bummer that you're telling me that there's nothing that can be done. And so, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, what diagnosis were flying around? Fibromyalgia, thyroidism. So I mean, just like the typical stuff that gets thrown, especially at women when things aren't going well. And, but yeah, my experience does differ. Like I did hit a lot of the same walls that you're describing, Alyssa, in your experience. But for me, I rebelled almost immediately. I saw the power my voice had from a young age, and I used it. And it did change things for me. I wasn't everyone's friend, but the people that were around me, I had very close relationships. And honestly, I mean, it's not scientific, but I had less conflict with the people who are close to me than I would say most people did with their friendships and relationships. Pros and cons, though. Like I said, I wasn't everyone's friend, and because I was more real or authentic, or was willing to say things that startled people, is maybe a way to say it, surprised or shocked sometimes. I also took the fall for a lot of things, and some of them not my fault. And it was just because people knew that, because there was a kind of hardness too, from the shadow of saying how you feel is kind of this hardness, because you can't be bothered by how people are gonna react. Like you were saying, Alyssa, you became very conscious of how messages were received, and you adjusted yourself accordingly. I did have to take the consequence of upsetting people. Little ways, maybe bigger ways, of course, is along the way, and ways where I would do it differently now with more respect or thoughtfulness. But yeah, that kind of goes and answers both questions, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's like the awareness of you as an adult called back on some of those core traits, the fundamental parts of who you were as a child, to find a way to heal yourself. Is that sort of what you found as you brought your voice back?
Yeah, I mean, it was a little bit more complicated. I feel like what the big wall that I experienced in young adulthood was that I had never really been ignored. And that was not something that I had developed any strategy for. And so I feel like that's kind of what really complicated the way I was moving through life, is that I was feeling very ignored, and in this intimate relationship. And of course, that's a big chunk of your world and your life. And so that's kind of the curveball that was thrown at me that I overcame. So they're a little different, what I experienced as a young person, and then what I experienced as an early adult.
So it's more like your experience with feeling like I've always been able to speak my truth and not care, but now I'm with somebody that is not hearing me, but I feel like I have to actually work with you. So how am I meant to navigate this? And I'm feeling silence, but did you feel like you lost a part of your voice in the process, or was it more like feeling like you can't be heard by someone that was critical in your life? Or was it both?
Both. But absolutely where it wasn't going well was that I didn't trust myself enough. I had enough, and I had these people, I had these very close relationships, friendships, and growing up and, being a young person, like I just had people who listened to me and validated me. And I realized I never had to develop that validation for myself in any meaningful foundational way. So now I'm in this relationship and I didn't have any defense or strategy for it. And I had to really go back to fundamentals, which is like dribbling the ball by yourself. You know what I mean? Like I had to start building that trust in myself that I had always turned to community for.
Got you. So it was the first time in your life where you felt like you didn't have people that you could have that validation. You naturally, sounds like you naturally brought those people into your life because you didn't lose your voice. So you found the people that loved you for you and wanted to, versus like what you attract. When I was like suppressing and trying so hard to be liked, I was going to attract those kind of people that were going to bring the same experiences. When it sounds like you're like, no, my voice matters. I'm going to say how it is. So you found the people, and that's what's really cool. And one of the biggest things I've recognized is like, when you truly believe you deserve things, those people that are going to mirror it show up in your life. And the reason why you don't have that in your life is not because you don't deserve it. It's because you don't believe you deserve it and you haven't showed up for yourself that way. And as soon as you do, these new little people you didn't even know they existed, like pop into your life. You're like, wow, this is so great. Where were you all my life? They were right there, but you didn't resonate yet because you didn't believe it. So that's so cool so once you hit that point where you were like, okay, now I don't really was part of it feeling like those people, like, why didn't you have those people anymore? Did you just kind of grow apart, or did you feel like you weren't allowed to share it because it was more of a private thing at that point? Or both?
So it was a growing thing because those people still existed. I just had never had I had never been in maybe that serious of a relationship before. I had a child too. So I think that's what deepened it, is I had this like very strong connection to this child who has this parent and who I love and all these things. And so I think it was just the complicating nature of just like having a child and like because I don't know, like previously I would not have continued a relationship with someone that I wasn't feeling in sync with. And so I think it was just that complicating factor where it's like, now there's a third person involved. I've never really had to do this mathematics with like three. It's always just been me and someone else. And so I still had all those people in my life, thankfully, gratefully. But it was actually the addition of that complicating element that kind of changed things. It made it a more nuanced decision. It wasn't just like, okay, our time's run thin.
Yeah, right. And it wasn't just that you needed to be heard. It was that you needed shifts and changes. You needed some fundamental like life things with running a family that you weren't getting, and you had to figure out, how am I supposed to do that for myself? And maybe the other people just didn't even have the answer. You had to find it for yourself in ways that you never had to deal with before. Does that resonate?
Absolutely. It was learning how to focus my energy, like not focus my energy. It was learning how to honor myself and the other.
Right.
And so, and learning the lesson in it instead of just walking away from situations that didn't fit my vibe, didn't align with who I was in that moment. It was learning to expand my being, my consciousness to a point where I could understand and hold, and just to be more authentic, but also more accommodating. And I know that's also kind of a word that people get really stuck on when they're in a hard situation, hard relationship. And so, so maybe I didn't describe it how we might want to describe it, but it was about learning more about myself and being more of myself in a bigger way.
Right. Showing up for ourselves the way that other people have had. We finally are like, oh, how do we do that for ourselves if we've always been having it for other people? And it's interesting that we kind of attract the people into our life that are going to push us in ways that expand us, that we would have never had to expand if we had got it from everybody. You know, just like us as children from our parents, like if they're always giving us everything, we don't have to learn it for ourselves. It's really nice. I was given everything, but finally I was in a tough place. I had to earn my own money, and that's an entirely different experience. And so it sounds like to me, like you took something that was really tough, but you found a way to create what it is you want, which is really inspiring. And I love that.
Yeah, it seems like everything was mirrored to you, right? As you needed it, when you needed it, and look where you've come because of it. Everything that was maybe a little far on the spectrum of having a strong voice came back to the middle, was silenced, and now you found that middle ground that feels like you've experienced both sides of the spectrum now, and it seems like you've tethered together in a really powerful way. So I really appreciate learning that too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I realized that the person who was silencing me was myself in that moment.
Right.
And so it took some time to come all the way around backwards into that realization. But yeah, I mean, ultimately that's what it was, because I'd never seen myself as that person who was quiet. And so, I had to kind of deconstruct some of that denial and realize that at least in this way, yes, largely I don't. But in this way that I've never experienced and I haven't had to move through before, I realized that the door was shut.
Right.
Yeah. I know this has been a huge guide to me. I think like one powerful way you could say it is like for me in this, have I learned to speak Matt yet? Like you learned how to speak Cassandra. Alyssa knows how to speak Alyssa. I'll tell you that. But she's very much teaching me to say what I mean and mean what I say. It's still something that doesn't come naturally, because I've spent even more time than her on the people pleasing, say exactly what you want to hear, how you want to hear it, and deal with the resentment later, because I don't actually have the space yet to share my true voice. So yeah, lots more to unpack. Angie has a great comment that she threw in, and then a question to follow it up, and I'd love to bring the question to both of you. It's right in line with what you're both sharing after we share this part. So just like you've each shared, she says, I spent so much time and energy trying to align my voice in a digestible way for others that I lost my voice completely. Right, in the same vein, it ended up blocking so many other chakras or energies in her body in the process. And that's so true. The voice is so connected to all of them, especially on down from there. And then her question, which I think you were really getting into, how do you speak your truth or find your voice when you're consistently being essentially told you're crazy, gaslit by individuals who don't hear you? Right back to the story of Cassandra, it seems like you both have experienced it on different levels. So what do you do if those, like in your relationship, Cassandra, when it's not working, it's not being received, what do you do in that situation?
Yeah. Again, I just want to emphasize step one is turning to yourself, like connecting to the dots, really seeing like when I'm anxious, where is it in my body? Do I feel it here? Do I feel it here? When it comes, like I was just talking to someone today, a couple hours ago, like they are just so tense through their neck. And it's funny because like even I can see it happening. And she was in with her husband today, and who was often in session with her. That's not but like I can see when he speaks, even though what he's saying is very maybe not very compassionate, but it is compassionate and it is loving, but it's coming with this like this level of frustration that he's experiencing, he's working through. I can just see her neck just clenching up, and then and then she'll start like moving. And so it's kind of like being really both loud and quiet with yourself, like sitting and letting those loud emotions kind of move through you. Is it what are you feeling? Are you feeling angry? Are you feeling this? Just being very okay with it, and then linking it to the place in your body, and then just kind of sitting and breathing through it. And then there's a lot of different practices and meditative and otherwise that you can do here, but like I can't stress that enough, and we could even go deeper into that if we like. But when it comes to the other, right, the other person, yeah, there has to be, I mean, boundaries is an easy word to throw around, but like boundaries basically is going to be like, could you please stop doing this thing? When you speak over me, like gaslight maybe isn't the word you would normally use, but like when you want to get specific, when you say this to me, I feel afraid, I feel shut down, I feel withdrawn, whatever it is, but be very vulnerable if that's appropriate. And I'd like you not to do it anymore. So that's kind of all well and easy, but the second part, that doesn't always come up, but like it often will if you're experiencing like back and forth, like a chronic communication issue with someone, that will come up, is like, if you step over this line that I set, if you step over it again, this is what I will do. And so is it like, will I say like, hey, you're, whatever it is, like whatever the line you said is, like, when you do this, I have to do this, because the consequence can't be something that they do, because we don't control them.
Right.
And so it's having very clear consequences for what happens when your boundaries are violated, and then following through every time if possible. So with an easy one, like with a parent, like an adult to an adult's child to their parent, like, if you're going to talk about this when I come over, if you're going to, like, I'm just going to, like, I love you, but if you're going to talk about this again, I'm just going to say goodbye and leave, and we'll talk again next week, or I'll see you, whatever. I'm going to have to end this call. That's kind of what it looks like. It's just, it has to be consequences.
Right. And the willingness to actually uphold the consequences. That's where I've had trouble.
Yeah.
I think really hard, even just from parent to child, because you don't want it to deal with the consequences either. You really want them to figure it out, to stop doing what they're doing. And so you got to be willing to let go of the need to control in order to get your power back. And that's like a hard thing for most people. It definitely was hard for me. But that consequence, like, that's really what shifts it. Like, your power is in your action. And I keep bringing it back to the let them and let me. Like, if they're going to choose that, let them. But your power is in you. It's not in making them do something different. It is in your action to step into, instead of a reaction, it's just your action. It's your choice to protect yourself. And it doesn't have to be in like a spiteful way. And it's not a threat. It's just it's your power. And that's usually what they'll say. Are you threatening me? If it's like an adult and they're really good at it. Oh, you're going to threaten me? It's like, no. Just knowing and being able to create the space that when they start to do the crazy making, that you step away because you've asked them not to. You can say, you're doing it, and this is what I've asked you not to do. And you please remember that if this continues, I'm going to have to walk away. You can always remind them in a loving way. And that kind of gives you then that chance, even with your kids. Hey, remember, we don't do that if you continue doing that, because they have to learn too. So they have the chance to stop. And then it's just leaving and then giving yourself the validation. Like, you've got to be willing to then listen to yourself, validate yourself, because they did do some harm, because you held space long enough and it was enough for you to have to leave. So you got to be willing enough to listen to yourself, speak through it, and be like, that wasn't fair. I did deserve this. And go back to your center, your truth, or find like a friend that you can then call and be like, hey, this just happened. And they'll totally validate you. But don't leave yourself unvalidated. That's really harmful to yourself. But you don't have to have someone else. You can just do it to yourself. Recenter, because it is a emotional attack that they're trying to throw on you to do all the tricks they do. So holding space for yourself and disconnecting from it, and then giving yourself what you need. So very important.
Yeah. Well, that disconnecting, that letting go, what you're describing, like, it's expectation. We have this expectation that we're going to agree, or that we can be happy, or that we can figure it out, or that we have the same perception of what's happening right now. And we have to let go of that, because that's where we undermine ourselves. That's where we undermine our boundaries, is like, well, I told you not to talk about this, like, stop. And then they'll, it's very human to kind of bait on that. Mm-hmm. And and to be like, well, I'm not saying that, or I did, whatever it is, right? And like, it's so human. We all do it. We all try not to do it, hopefully. But it's knowing that you don't need to be in agreement that the boundary was violated.
Right.
And I tell people, when you set those consequences to the boundary, really be thoughtful about it, because you need to be able to do this 99% of the time. There can't be exceptions all over the place, because it will not work out.
Right.
And so absolutely, like, understand that expectations are what cause disappointment and friction internally. And so kind of allowing things to just be what they are. And that's really hard too, is to let go of expectations. I wish I could quote it, and maybe someone knows what I'm talking about. But there's this theory, like this, you cannot be depressed if you didn't have expectations. And so I know that's kind of a loaded thing. I had to sit with it for a good week or two before I came around to it, and I started having like fond feelings toward that belief. But this idea that, like, because expectations are so, like, we expect the sun to rise, we expect, maybe like the other parent of our child to participate or help out, whatever it is that our expectations, like, we can't do everything on our own. Because, like you were saying, Alyssa, at the beginning, where this thing like, well, maybe trusting no one except for myself is the answer. That doesn't get us as far as we'd hope either.
Right.
And so finding that way to not necessarily to let go of expectations that are no longer serving us, that gets us to where we want to be the fastest.
Yeah, totally. And that goes right back to the trusting too. Like, you can have the expectations when it suits you, and it suits you because the trust has been built. The experience is comfortable enough that you've been proven. So it's like, oh, I can hope for this because it's always paying back. But as soon as what you hoped for is no longer meeting those needs, it's not that the desire is wrong. Like, you do deserve to feel that. And that's part of what I think we cut from ourselves when we say, I'm not going to hope anymore. And that's where, I wouldn't be depressed if it can get really confusing, because we associate, I just won't hope for that anymore. No, you want that hope. That hope is so important. There's a reason why I loved it, and there's a reason why you were holding on to it. You need to pull that hope back in and put it back out where it serves you. Pull the power back in, and then find it again in your life, wherever it doesn't have to be. We always say it has to be a certain thing, but it doesn't. And if you pull it back in and say, I deserve this, and that's not happening anymore here, but I deserve to find where that does. So bring ourselves to believe that whatever you're expecting, you did deserve. But you don't deserve it in a certain package from the people. You can't expect it from people. You can allow yourself to know you deserve it, but that you are part of the process to bring it in. And that's where your power is to find the people and the experiences that you co-create that bring in those good feelings elsewhere, and stop making it be the person that's showing that they're incapable of that. Right? Is that what you're saying?
That's a great clarification, and I even want to clarify a little bit further, even if it's, going far, but like, it's that hope that we have, that expectation, like, we can't expect it from this situation. Because that's another hard part, is when we're working with difficult relationships, whatever they might be, is that sometimes that person does show up. And so, like, learning how to balance and accept it as appropriate for you. Like, if you know that receiving this gift from someone at sometimes complicates your life a week later, a day later, an hour later, then yeah, that's where you start learning to protect yourself against that person. But if it really is just like, in this conversation, we're not communicating, well, I'm not going to get what I want from this conversation, but maybe I can tomorrow. Those are different scenarios. But yeah, absolutely. Like, letting go of the expectation for the circumstance at hand, not letting it go too far in the future or back in the past.
Right. And reassess again, without the, it has to be, if you keep getting the same experience and you keep wanting it to be different, pull that part back in and be like, well, when do I get it? And what are the circumstances? And where should I place my trust? And where should I be more aware that this isn't going to go the way I want it? And I need to just pull my energy back and give it to myself, however that is. Sometimes it's like just my inner, go talk to myself and like write it out, or find a way to validate it, or realize I have a need that it's unmet that I'm waiting for them to do, but there's a way I could do it. I just haven't been creative enough because that's where I thought it had to be offered. We put so much of that, especially on our spouses or the closest people to us. It's supposed to be you. And that limits us from getting it everywhere we would be getting it if we didn't make it be them. It's us, and it's our capacity to have community and friends, and this whole, like, all of a sudden we step into this marriage and it has to be everybody else. That's the biggest core break, is that we are limited when we say that's what it has to look like. But when you start to open your mind and say, maybe it doesn't, what could it look like for me if I want to stay in this marriage? Where can I get my needs met in ways that I can be more creative instead of it has to be you? And that's uncomfortable, but so many of us like get divorced instead, which is way more uncomfortable. And we didn't really realize what we're getting into until we're in especially if there's kids in court. It's like, there's so many other ways to get your needs met in ways that could be safe. And all it takes is voice, like speaking up, saying, I have these needs and I would like to do it this way. Are you willing to work with me? If not, I'm going to do it. If you're going to leave me, then leave me, but I'm not leaving either. I'm just telling you what I need, and I'm going to find a way to do it. And I'm going to do it honestly, vulnerably, and true. You can stay, you can go, but I'm going to like protect myself and get what I need and be honest about it. And a lot of times there's a lot more capacity they have to stretch with you, because they too don't want their relationship to, and they're also tired of you expecting all these things of them, that it feels like a relief to finally like, okay, what's that going to look like? And sometimes it activates them to want to show up better that way too, all because they're like, oh, you're going to get it. And you still like it opens many doors that you would have had, because you deserve it, you're willing to get it. But it doesn't mean you have to cut people off and make it mean more than it has to mean. Just, you have these needs, these desires, and all these parts that you want to be seen in, and different ways of connecting. So I went on a little bit of a rant.
No, I love it. It's back to that magnetism. If you can draw it to yourself, sometimes, you can help reverse the polarity, of the other. But like at the end of the day, like, it doesn't matter. That's not the outcome you're shooting for. You're out there for yourself. Like, this is your ride, and whoever wants to jump on and enjoy it can, and they can pop off whenever they want.
Right.
That's beautiful wisdom. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying, like, that's the sovereign. That's the part where we step into it, where it's like, it's mine. I deserve it. I deserve to get it. I care how it affects you, but I'm not going to sacrifice myself against you over and over. I'm going to say we both deserve it. Let's find a new way, but I'm not giving up on myself. And I'm not saying it has to be you, but I do deserve it. It's just like giving all the power back to yourself. And it does feel like it just takes a little bit of deprogramming and then reprogramming.
Yeah, absolutely.
We do, and we should, and we will. But how soon will you get on that your own train that is going, and it's going without you, and you feel left behind? Like, just hop on and be the one that's driving it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I left this quote up from Eve because she's right in the same vein that you've been in, and I don't know if she's saying literally or emotionally, but spending 16 years of her life with a person that didn't speak her language felt like being in the Tower of Babel. That's a pretty good analogy. And it goes back what Cassandra said in the beginning, still resonating. Like, I just want to feel good and be happy. Why is it so hard? Why am I stuck in this drain that just feels like it'll never stop cycling? And it feels like it's really important for us to give that a voice when we feel stuck. And the throat chakra, one thing that you taught me, Alyssa, years ago, is like your throat, picture it like a waterfall that flows into your heart, and that's the color blue that you're both wearing. You look great, by the way. Is the color of water. Water's meant to flow. As soon as it gets stuck and stops flowing, it gets stagnant. It becomes acidic and toxic, and that's really what your voice is like too. So I think leading into sort of like a question to close is like, how important is it to speak into that discomfort and share things that people may not want to hear but are true, that is how you feel? How important is that in creating the life that you really want for yourself?
I love that. Did you say specifically who you wanted to answer first? I didn't hear that part.
You could go first, and then we could have Cassandra weigh in.
So just to clarify, this is how I see it. I love the waterfall idea, but it's basically like the waterfall is your chakras, and this is where it's released. And the blocks are because you're not allowing it to flow. Every single chakra relies on every chakra, but this one especially, because this is the one that speaks for all of them. this is the expression of what you feel, of what you think you deserve, of your choices that you made, of everything, of how it feels to love and connect to everybody else, and then your thoughts and how you connect with and make sense of the world. Like all your chakras are meant to be expressed here. And when you block this off, you block out every single other part of you that doesn't know how to relate to each other because its voice is stuck. So clearing your throat is like so important, and finding the way to find your expression and make sure you're honoring your voice, because it does not matter if it's received. It matters that you said it because you heard it.
Yeah.
It matters. Like that is why you have a voice. It is to express, because when you express, you become in union with yourself, because all the parts of you is finally hearing the other parts of your expression, because it's not just what you think, it's also what you feel, and it's also what you want, and it's also what your choices you made and what you've learned from them. And all of that is in just being willing to just voice what comes up, how it comes up. And that's the waterfall that's meant to then, find a way out so that it then can be recirculated and brought back into you. But that's like a very important, just like we have like exits here and here, and it's coming back in. It's also a voice that's meant to go out and back in, because you can hear yourself and then it's brought back in. So that's like my best advice, I feel like, as far as, did I answer your question? I got excited about the waterfall part.
Exactly.
Okay, so, but yeah, bringing that ability to not block. So you shut this off, your depression begins because you no longer are capable. You're suppressing all that needs to be expressed so that you can keep flowing and find new joy and new ideas and new experience. Instead, you're just stagnant because you haven't expressed it. So it doesn't matter if anyone validates it. It matters that you say it. It matters that you cry it out. It matters that there is a tone or an idea. It doesn't matter how bad it is. It doesn't matter if it doesn't make sense. It matters that you let it go. And that's it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I'll rephrase it just a little bit to include some of what you added. But like across the universe, almost every origin story says that all good, all light, all truth, all humanity started with a sound somewhere, some kind of a om or a word or mother, child, goo goo gaga, whatever it may be. Almost everywhere you go, every good thing started at the very root, very base with a sound. So in your experience, Cassandra, as you're seeking that happiness and embodying it and creating it around you, how much power does your voice have in creating the life and the happiness that you want and deserve for yourself, your children? How much power does your voice have in creating that for you?
Absolutely. So in the ways that I have done and I would recommend, when someone's just like, how do I do that? Like what Alyssa, what you're describing, like I would recommend the same thing, but how it's kind of reclaiming complaint. And so, because there's an aspect where you do have to express it, but is the way you're expressing it effective? So firstly, expressing it to yourself always. Even speaking aloud to yourself, if you're feeling like, I don't feel loved enough, there is studies with the brain where like you look in a, like you don't even have to look in a mirror, but it does help to look in a mirror and you say, I love you. Your brain is both like the words are coming out, they're going into your own ear, you're hearing it. And then you're just in your brain, it's kind of like, it's just seeing that another, if you're looking into a mirror, it's just seeing that another person said that. So starting with like the silly fundamentals that can be really hard for us, because some of us never learned to appreciate or to have what's the word, not compassion but affection for ourselves. A lot of us didn't learn that. We only learned affection and compassion through acts from another or to another. So if that is your story, kind of reclaiming that affection for self, and then finding the effective ways, like with the other, if you are in a relationship of some sort that you are not getting your needs met in, finding a way to be able to say what it is that you want in a very clear way. Don't, not in a way of poking at the other, but saying like, I'm not feeling enough love in my life, instead of saying like, you never say you love me, whatever it is. I know that's a very like silly example, but finding a way to really get down to the core issue. I don't feel enough love. I don't feel enough freedom. I don't feel heard. Addressing it with yourself first, and then finding the core aspect, refining it down, and then sharing that. And not having an expectation for like what's going to happen. Maybe though someone says, well, how do you, like, right? The other person might say, well, how? Like, what do you mean? And they'll get defensive, and finding a way to, like, again, recenter yourself back to your message. And then maybe you do have a request at that point. Maybe you say, I don't know, we can think about it together. I just wanted to let you know how I feel. Whatever it is, but building from there upward, and letting it be, again, very much thoughtful and almost solitary, at least at the beginning, so that you can build forward in a relationship.
I love that.
I do too. The baseline doesn't need to be, rainbows and butterflies, even though we all want it to be. The baseline just needs to be real. And then from there, you've got a foundation you can actually build from. So I really appreciate that vote of confidence from both of you to speak your truth, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it feels like a place you haven't been before. Trust that honesty and that truth will provide for you the life that you deserve and the life you always have deserved. So I appreciate that so much from both of you. Alyssa, we're past the hour. It's been a wonderful conversation, a great discussion. We're so excited we could have Cassandra join and be our first guest speaker. Any final thoughts that you'd like to share before we adjourn?
Let's see. I think basically, like with what Cassandra was saying, I do feel like as long as we invite other people, we know what we need, we know what we want, we're willing to ask for it, and we don't put the expectation on them. We're just kind of like, this is what we realize we deserve. We would like you to be a part of that. Do you want to partake in that? Because I would love it to be you, because that would bring me so much joy. But if not, I'm going to find other ways that I could do this for myself. And I'd love it if you could support me in that in any way that you show up. And the expectation is gone, but the awareness, you've given the message, given them the opportunity, but you're on a train that you're going to get it yourself, with or without them. You'd love them to join. And that gives you that power back to finally be like, I deserve this. And I realize this is what I was missing. And I realize I deserve it. So I'm going to find it with or without you. And you don't have to do it in a threatening way, but in like I deserve this. And I'm going to find a safe way that I could get that for myself. And I'll be honest about it and I'll bring you into it. But I just want to let you know, I would love more of that from you, because you're the most important person to me. It gives you the power to find it regardless of them. And there's no more expectation, but there's a asking that I think is what she's talking about. Like, find the way to be able to vulnerably say, this is me, this is what I want, and I'd like you to give that. If we feel like we're just going to do it ourselves, like we're going to cut them off, I'm not even going to get it from you, you don't give it to me, and you're not going to invite them to be giving it to you. But if you know that you deserve it and that's what you're pulling in, and then you're saying, I'm going to get it, I really would love this from you, you're giving them the chance to offer something that you don't have to have, but that you really want. And it gives them something may awaken in them where they're like, I really do love you and I really do want to give it to you. So that's just very final.
Yeah, I love that. I immediately want to rewrite like the idea of like, I'm not getting to, I want to feel more love. That would be much more effective, and kind of explaining it that way and letting it be a collaborative, like opening the door for it to be collaborative. It not having the expectation that you can only be happy if that other person does reach out. But yeah, just having that very open, collaborative energy and seeing what comes.
I love it.
Yeah, it feels
you
like.
Have something, Matt? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm in the same. I'm feeling the words. I'm feeling the feelings behind what you're saying. It feels like opportunity without expectation. I love that. That came through in a way I've never really understood it tonight, and it feels like I have what I need, and I'm still learning to receive it. But I'd love more of it if you're willing to share. And that feels like such a high vibration to enter. So I feel like I've embodied more of that within myself tonight. I'm excited to take what we've talked about and embody it in our relationship as we continue to raise the vibration of our conversation with ourselves and with each other. And I just really appreciate everything you both shared. I think it was really meaningful, especially this idea of embodying your true highest self and inviting those around you who can meet you there to do so, but being very firm for those who aren't, and not just allowing cycles to repeat at both parties' detriment. So thank you both so much. Thank you, all of you who shared your comments, your thoughts, your dreams, your experiences, your pain. Eve, Angie, Arrow, and Brian, we really appreciate you so much. We can't wait to see you in our next conversation if you can make it. Cassandra, thanks from the bottom of our hearts. We hope to do this
Absolutely.
with you.
Love you all. Thank you so much. Happy Tuesday. Go speak your truth.
Yes.